Today at 6, a Queen's speech setting out the government's programme, but this time without the Queen.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons.
For the first time, it was Prince Charles doing the honours, setting out how the government says economic growth, not government spending, will tackle the cost of living crisis.
However great our compassion and ingenuity, we cannot simply spend our way out of this problem. We need to grow out of this problem.
It's the latest chapter in a pathetic response to the cost of living crisis. Where there should have been support, it's been tax rise after tax rise on working people.
We'll be talking to people in Stoke, asking them what they need to survive the cost of living crisis. Also tonight, Ukraine claims Russia has used hypersonic missiles to target the port city of Odessa, raising fears that the country's grain exports will be affected. Vardy versus Rooney, but this time in the High Court, the so-called Wagatha Christie trial gets underway. For years, Deborah James has shown us what living with cancer can look like. Now, as her journey draws to a close, her charity has raised more than £1 million overnight.
It makes me feel utterly loved, but it makes me feel like we're all kind of in it at the end together.
Coming up on Sports Day later in the hour on the BBC News Channel, one of the world's top strikers is heading to Manchester City. The 21-year-old Erling Haaland will join on a 5-year deal this summer.
Good evening and welcome to the BBC's News at 6. The Queen's speech had all the pomp we've come to expect from the occasion, but with one crucial difference. The Queen did not deliver it. Instead, it was Prince Charles who set out the government's legislative agenda. With rising costs hitting millions of households, the government says we cannot spend our way out of the crisis. Instead, the Prime Minister said the answer was economic growth. Well, let's look at some of the key proposals. There'll be measures to flesh out what the government calls levelling up, primarily driving regional growth in England by empowering local leaders. There will be bills to address housing in England, in particular strengthening tenants' rights in the social housing sector. And there will be bills which will strip away EU regulations, which ministers claim will save £1 billion in red tape. But the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, argued that none of the plans would relieve the immediate burden of rising costs, accusing ministers of burying their heads in the sand. Here's our political editor, Chris Mason.